Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about Docker and Docker Compose, and we'll be using these powerful tools to install Jenkins, a leading open source automation server. But before we get into that, let's first understand the difference between traditional virtual machines and Docker. Virtual machines and Docker containers are both good methods to deploy applications, but they work in fundamentally different ways. A virtual machine is a complete system with its own operating system and applications, running on top of a physical host through a hypervisor. So this means each VM instance includes a full copy of operating system, application, necessary binaries, and libraries. Like this can take up to around uh, tens of GBs of space, and also the VM can also be very slow to boot because there are a lot of things incorporated within the same host. So on the other hand, Docker container shares the host system kernel and isolate the application process to the rest of the system. So it's basically shares the host OS and the physical server, but the application would be different. This makes them very lightweight and fast. So containers takes up like very less space when compared to virtual machines. Around I think it's of 10 of MB, 10 MB, something like that, can handle more applications and require fewer VMs and operating systems because we are going to share the same one to that. So let's talk about Docker. So this is the architecture of Docker. So um, the Docker is a platform that allows you to automate the deployment, scaling, and management of applications using containerization. It's a lightweight alternative to traditional virtualization, allowing you to run multiple isolated applications on a single operating system. So this makes Docker containers fast, more efficient, and highly portable. So here, if you see the client in this architecture, we can see the client, the daemon, the Docker daemon, and the images, containers, and the registry. So client is nothing but the one we are running on our local server, like where we are trying to pull the Docker images and do the build or do the deployment, doing the deployment containerization actually. So we run Docker run, build, and pull. Like basically, it will in the opposite way: Docker pull and then Docker build and Docker run. So Docker run will be the deployment part. We are going to deploy the containers. And the Docker pull would be we will be connecting to Docker daemon. The Docker daemon is like it's a API request and manages Docker objects such as containers, networks, and volumes. Like it's like a medium between our the local server and the containers basically. So like and other part like networks, volumes, and images. So this will be the main part which will communicate with other daemons to manage Docker services. And if I explain it more, so daemon will be responsible to handle everything. It's gonna handle everything internally. So the images, so we have, let's talk about registry and then we can talk about the registry is nothing but we have a Docker hub. I think let me open the Docker. I think I should. Okay, let me open it. So we have a registry. Docker hub would be here. Yeah. So this Docker hub stores all the images we are trying to deploy. So every application, any application, if you want to deploy, like I'll show you example. I'll find in Nginx, BusyBox, Ubuntu, Python, Redis, Postgres, Node, all the databases are an application related part, MongoDB, MySQL, MariaDB, Docker. See, I think there are a lot of internet. So WordPress. Image, so we'll have everything here. So if you in this tutorial we're going to install Jenkins. So let's look for Jenkins. So this is the Jenkins image we are going to use actually in this tutorial. So that's how we do it. So let's go back, and these images we'll be pulling the images and then doing the build, and we'll run the build, and that will do the build. And then once you run the Docker run command, it will create the containers with the particular ports, and that's how it works. I hope I understood. Yeah, I think I explained it right. So and the next part would be Docker Compose. So let's go back to our previous architecture. So here we are using Docker, and it's only multiple containers, right? So there are two ways of doing it. Um, so we have a different prerequisites first for the Docker. Before that, I'm going to talk about my channel. You can go back and look for my tutorials, and or you can go back to my Git repo. I have placed this GitHub repo over there. So just git pull. It's up to date. So let's do Terraform. Terraform init. If you're new to this, I'm going to show you how it works. Once we spin up this, like I'm trying to start the AWS server without doing manual work. Like usually, whenever we want to spin up something, you go to here and instance type and select a new instance. So this is the T2 micro which I'm going to use because it's free. I'm using free, so free part. So if you want to run instance and create everything, you need to go here and provide a name, and you select the AMI which service. I'm using the Linux AMI one, and I'm using I think the 5.10 version. So you remember the AMI name for EC, right? So I'm going to show you in real, and I'm using T2 micro. You need to download a key pair, and that's how it works. So let me go back. So Terraform init and Terraform validate. So let me open this up in real quick. So this is the one instance, and go to this side. Okay. So what this does was we are using provider in Terraform and creating a elastic IP address, permanent IP address, to have a permanent IP address assigned to our EC2 instance. I'm creating AWS instance with OS name. This is the AMI name for EC, which I showed you. Like I picked up from there, and this is the key. Uh, so we need to have a key created when we are trying to create instance manually. But if you go here and search for key pairs, you'll be able to create a new one. So I'm using demo 3 right now. It's pretty simple. Just create the click on create pair and just give the name, and you'll be able to have a key name. And then I'm using instance steps of T2 micro, which is a free tier one, and we only have one CPU and few RAM with it. And I'm providing, I think, let me do it. Yeah, I'm using the VPC version here. So I think, okay, let me use this. I'm creating this in our AP South one. So, and this is a script. Actually, we are going to use this script initially to create install Docker and Docker Compose. So the first part would be we're updating the VM packages, and we're installing unzip and Java JDK, and we are installing Docker as well. So -y is like it will automatically, it will check, it will ask for you for permission, and we need to type yes. So we are skipping the providing -b, and then we are downloading the compose. Let me scroll here so that you can see it. Yeah, this is the curl command to download the Docker Compose version, and then we are giving permissions to it, and then adding it to environment variables and sourcing it to the bash src, and starting the Docker and enabling the Docker. And we are creating only one. If you change this to 2, you will create 2 instances here and here. These are the 2 places you need to do it. So let's do Terraform plan. It's going to show you what it's going to create, and I'm also opening 2280443880 ports. 880 port is needed for Jenkins, so I open this. Okay, so it's ready for Terraform apply. Okay, once I have explained about, so it's basically I created variables, and here, so just do s. I think I didn't spell it right. Just to s, it's gonna take like a minute to create it. In the meanwhile, let me go back to the Docker. So this is the documentation we have for Docker, but I'm not going to use it. I'm going to explain you real quick. So I explained about Docker and installing Docker. Those are the steps which I showed you, and then downloading and running Jenkins in Docker. So this part I need to. So these are the steps which Jenkins documentation has provided. It's going to create a lot of things. It's going to create a Docker network and everything. So we can use a normal network for now because this tutorial doesn't need that. I'm going to create a separate video for Docker networks, there are a lot of there are almost 7 to 8 Docker networks. I'm going to explain it one by one. So for now, I think this is something which they provided. That if you remember, I have explained about Docker daemon in the previous document. Let me go back there. Yeah, so it's going to create a Docker daemon. This is nothing but a Docker daemon, Docker dind, and then it's gonna start. It's gonna add the cert and data, the volume. This is the volume and everything. So this is pretty much a lot of things that has been added here, but we don't need for this demo part. I think I'm going to show you real quick. Let's get the server started. Yeah, the 8 resources has been added and 1 IP address is being added. So let's go back. Um, so this is running right now. Okay, let's log into the server. So we can log into the server via SSH or command line, but I use it from EC2 Constants Connect. It will be very easy. You can directly control to your browser. But I suggest you to use it from so let's do sudo update. We already ran this command, but just to be sure, I'm running it again. So if you see here, I think, yeah, here you go. So we already ran this command, but I'm just going one by one. If in case we miss anything, we can to run. So it's already there. Okay, so we have to and then do upgrade. Yeah, no packages marked for update, so it's already present. So I think it went. So it looks like it went everything. So let's do. We need to have. So this script will run Docker, and Docker Compose will install and it will enable the Docker. So let's see Docker version. So it's already there. Docker Compose version. These are the commands to check for the version. So those are both are present right now. So let's run a Docker. So we in this tutorial we're going to create a we need to install the Jenkins, if you remember. So let me what I will do is I will just try and go here. I think I showed you before, but let me show you again. So we will be pulling this Docker image to our server. So let's run Docker pull, and then the version is Jenkins and Jenkins LTS. So what it does was it will try to this command will download the long-term. Okay, I forgot giving the sudo. Sudo is the permission needed for root access. So it will try to download the long-term support version of Jenkins. So it's trying to download the image right now. Once the image is downloaded, we can run it as a container by running the following command. I'm going to run that command once the image is ready. So let's wait for a second. It is very fast since I said there is no issue with the performance or anything. You can easily spin up something very fast. So let's see the image has been came up. Okay. So see here the Jenkins has been pulled up. So we have image has been present in our local in the server right now. So let's to run it as a container. We need to run the following command: docker run fnp 80 and 80 hyphen p, I think 50,000. Yep, I think hyphen b, and we provide the Jenkins home. I think it's Jenkins home. So this is the Jenkins path actually, which we're going to mount it, and you can think it as a let me explain it once I run this command. So I think it is I'm forgetting about the sorry for it. So once you run this, so it's basically what it does was let me explain one by one first. So hyphen p 8080 and p 50,000 port. So this maps these ports, like this particular section maps these ports from Docker container to your machine. It's kind of assigning a port to your container. Port 8080 is needed for Jenkins web interface, and port 50,000 is needed for connecting build agents. That's what you need to know right now. And the Jenkins home, we are providing a Jenkins home. This creates a Docker volume. It will try to create a Docker volume and mounts it to the Jenkins home directory. You can think it as a allocate some particular location for container, and then this allows Jenkins data to actually persist across container restarts. Like whenever there is any restart happened, it makes sure that that all the data will be present here. And if you want to take a backup in Jenkins, this is the right place. You to come here and you can copy everything from here. You will be able to recover everything what you have if you have any issues with the backup. And then once you run this command, the Jenkins should be up and running. See here. So this is the public IP address. We can pick this up. This is not needed, so let's do here. And if you remember, 8080 is the default Jenkins port. If you run this, so you'll be able to see this page. So this is how it started. So there is one more. There is a lot of things we need to. So it says Jenkins initial setup is required. Admin user has been created and password generated. So we need to follow these steps. But so if you see here, if I do Control C, it's going to stop. So if you go back and do here, so for that we can run in this way. I think we can add -t. So this is like running in background. So it's kind of running in background. I guess. Okay, it should be created. So yeah, I think let me go to the container now. So user doc execute. We need the container name actually. So so you will get the container ID now. So let's now run docker execute -it and the container ID and then the bash. So now you will be able to access the container. We are in the container right now. So if you do ls, you can see all of the whatever present should like it's like a new Linux machine now, which has the application. So it's kind of cool. So let's go to the where. So if you want to get the credentials, so you can just do cat and do here. So you'll be able to get the credentials. So this is about Docker. So let me talk about Docker Compose now. So we still need to set up the Jenkins installation. So this is just started, and then we need to install the plugins and create the user. So I'm going to explain about Docker Compose and do the same steps again, and then we can come back and do the setup. So right now let's stop the Docker containers which we created. So this is the Docker container, right? So let's do Docker container. And then do this. Okay, I think we need to stop it first. Okay, we are still in the container. We need to exit out. Sorry for that. So let's run this command again. So it's going to stop the container. This is stopped right now. So let's remove it right now. Okay, so let's remove it. Okay, so it's removed. So now let's talk about Docker Compose. So the Docker Compose is similar to Docker, but it can it is a tool for defining and running multi-container Docker applications. With Compose, you use a YAML file to configure your application services, and then with a single command, Docker Compose up command, you can create and start all the services from your configuration. Whatever present in your YAML file in the configuration, you can start up. It can be 2, 3, 4, it's your requirement. You can scale up like multiple containers within the network. So that's how it is. This makes like it's a powerful tool that simplifies the deployment of multi-container applications. And when coming to the YAML, so I have I got something already copied here. So this is the Docker Compose file. Let me show you real quick. So yeah, this is the YAML file. So YAML file is a format. YAML is a format for writing data in a way that both humans and computers can read easy. Like very easy and easy to understand. So it's often used for configuration files for software applications and for data exchange between languages with different data structures. Think of YAML as a way to write down information in a structured way. I think that's how you can start it up. And we're gonna right now let me go by one. So this is the version. This is the default version which you can use. Right now it's 3. It can be changed to a different upgrade to different version in future. And we are creating a service. We are creating 2 services here, which is Jenkins and Nginx. This is nothing but the containers. So if you remember, I have ran the command and I provide this all the path. This is the variable volume, and this is the port and the image name and Jenkins name. And I added a new container which is called Nginx. That's the same thing. We provided Nginx latest. You can find the Nginx latest one from here. So this is the part. You can go and get the version from here, or you can mention the latest version. So I went for latest, and then port would be 80 for default, and this is the configuration file which we have, and then the Nginx log path, and I just provide the volumes. So now let's run this Docker file and see how it goes. So I think let me do Docker Compose again. Docker Compose version. Yeah, it's here. So I think let's run the Docker Compose. So this is the command to run the Docker Compose. I think let's give the path since we are having some issues with the path initially. Okay, this is a Docker Compose file we installed and copied to use a local bin, if you remember. And then now do up -t. That's it. Let's run this. And it should start creating the, see, pretty simple. It started creating the containers. So since we already created a previous container, the network is not created. It took the default network. But if you do sudo docker network, sudo docker container plus, it should show both the applications. Now if you go and scroll here, this is how we install multiple containers to any host. So that's how it is. So let's go ahead and install the Jenkins and make it ready. So we're almost there. Let's run this, and okay, we need to so, and one more thing, in order to get this key, we always need to, as you remember, we just need to go to the inside container, and then what is the container name in this case? Here, container, and then do bash. That's how. Okay. I think what's the version number? Okay, let me change the version name. Okay, we are in the, and then now you can get the key from here. Yeah, here you go. So just copy this and then start setting up the Jenkins. We'll be able to complete it right now. So just cancel, and we install the suggested plugins. Whatever present with comes up with the Jenkins 2.4, it'll automatically pick up all the plugins and install it by itself. But we need to install more plugins as per your requirement. So right now we are just doing the normal version since it's just for the demo. I'm going to cover more on Jenkins plugins in the next video, but this is how we do. That's it. I think we almost covered all the parts. So to summarize, the Docker is very real, like secure and reliable and fast when compared to previous virtual machine. And I also have one more thing which I want to explain. So this is about monolithic architecture and microservice architecture. So you can think as monolithic architecture uses virtual machines, and microservices architecture uses Docker and Docker containers. It's similar to what we explained with Dockers and virtual machines, like single large application which has tightly coupled components like multiple things, and we have single database here. and we'll be using single database and single development complex, like we'll be using single database and single application here, like, and then horizontal scaling and development will be very complex here because everyone will be using the same host. The load will be very high, and it's actually it will we'll see a lot of issues, performance issues later. So in here we have collection of sample services like containers and like loosely coupled components. It's the none one another is not dependent on each other. Each container is independent and isolated, so you can use it anywhere, and you can have separate database for each service. Like right now I have used only an example for showing you. Okay, let me get exit out from here. I just explained about the Docker, so we can add database here inside here. So since we have Nginx, Nginx and database compose file, so you can simply I think you can find this everywhere. So yeah, this is the thing. If you see here, the song sample Go application will go with Nginx proxy. I think here they are using as Nginx proxy, but here sample application. Yep. So we can use multiple. What I was trying to say was we can add the database file here, like as a different container, as we did for Jenkins and Nginx. We can add a database which can be connected to here. So if you remember, I have explained to you about a depends on meta argument. We can use the same thing here. We can mention Jenkins and let's say we can mention Nginx, and it says you can say depends on a database and provide the database details like username, password, and database host server, and such something like that. Let's go back. I think we are almost. Okay, so we are done with it. Like, let's go back and see. Yeah, we need to provide the admin credentials, give the password which you can remember, and CodeMaster, and you need to provide the working email ID just to be sure, and then this will save it and then start Jenkins. That's how it is. So we covered everything. So we were able to complete our main goal. We were able to install the Docker Compose, and then we installed Jenkins and an application server using Docker Compose. Like we explained the difference between Docker virtual machines and Docker, and also I have explained the difference between Docker and Docker Compose, and I showed you a minimal example right now. So that's how we install the Jenkins using Docker. That's all for today's video. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and please do like and subscribe my channel. I have seen like a lot of people are trying to I'm getting views, but I'm not able to get any subscription. I think please do subscribe if you like my content, so that this will be encourage me to do more content. Yeah, see you on the next video. Bye.